we have a fair sampling. For those of you who haven't got on, stay on the line. We'll be back with our two guests, and the discussion will begin on the abortion clinic setup and the whole question of abortion. And in the United States, there are going to be huge marches this weekend because it's the 10th anniversary of the setting up of these clinics, of the passing of laws. And, well, the battle goes on in Canada, too. We'll be back. Dr. Henry Morgentaler, freestanding abortion clinics across the country. You've done time behind bars because of your crusade. You've been tried 3 times. It was going to be 4, but then they dropped it. You've been reviled. You've been threatened. You've had a hell of a life for 18 years, Dr. Morgentaler. What drives you? Why?
Well, in my abortion clinic in Montreal, I still receive daily women who come from as far as Alberta and Newfoundland, women who have traveled 20 hours on a train, 12 hours on a bus, women who come, 15-year-old girls who come with their mothers from St. John's, Newfoundland. Just the trip alone is $1,000. All the suffering, the stress, the anxiety that comes knocking at my door. And here I have a clinic where we provide decent, safe medical procedures in an atmosphere of respect for the person, an atmosphere of dignity and competence. And here are all these women in Canada who cannot get access to this. And I just meet those who can come. But for everyone who can come, maybe there are 2 or 3 who cannot come to a medical place, who still have to use a coat hanger, who still have to go to an illegal abortionist, who still have to continue an unwanted pregnancy. I think it's a shocking situation. And I'm angered and outraged and indignant that this situation still persists in Canada, and that the ministers of health, whose job is to protect the health of women, don't want to do anything. And the Minister of Justice of Canada, who can just make a law saying, well, this law is irrational, it's stupid, it's schizophrenic, it permits some women to have an abortion, others not. And here I'm sitting in a freestanding clinic, which is probably one of the best in Canada, if not in the world. And clinics like this operate in the United States, and 2 out of 3 abortions are done in freestanding clinics in the United States with a better safety record than that of hospitals. And I say, well, what's happening here? Nobody wants to do anything. Finally, yes, I've suffered for it. I went to jail for it. I know I can provide good, decent medical service. I don't see any reason why women across Canada should not have access to the same kind of decency, competence, and good, humane, human, compassionate care that they receive in my clinic. And this is what I want to achieve for women across Canada. I've achieved it for the province of Quebec, where women now have access to hospital abortions, freestanding clinics, and to government-sponsored and funded clinics where they receive it under Medicare by doctors trained by me. And this is what I want to spread. I don't want women anymore to beg for a hospital abortion, to be delayed in obtaining an abortion, because every week's delay increases the danger of complications by 20%. I want the protection of women's health and the protection of their dignity. It's just as simple as that.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Morgentaler. Welcome, Dr. Bernard Nathanson of New York, crusader.
Thank you.
Many years ago, marched in the streets, carted your little 3-year-old boy along with your wife, carried placards, presided over some 75,000 abortions, 1,500 personally, and then had a dramatic change of heart, and today you are pro-life. Your book came out about 5 years ago. You were three? A little ambivalent there still. You still had some questions about the pro-life movement, but now you're definitely pro-life.
Yes, definitely.
What do you have to say, sir?
Well, I think that the core issue here is really not the setting up of supermarkets for abortion or a string of charnel houses across the country here to do abortions on a clinic basis. I think the basic issue here is whether abortion, in fact, should continue to be legal. And secondly, what sort of country is this, Canada, where the abortion law is flouted openly and is trashed? Now, my conversion on this issue was not some kind of overnight epiphany. It was the result of my working in the area of fetology from the years 1973 to 1977. Fetology, as you know, is a new science. It uses new technology, such as ultrasound and electronic fetal heart monitoring, many other new modalities, which are sophisticated and fantastic. And we have opened up the whole life of the fetus for study. And of course, those studies have finally culminated in a growing realization that the fetus is entirely similar, identical to any of us, that it's a member of the human community, and as a result, all the rights and privileges and protections which we are afforded should, of course, flow to that person, that prisoner in the womb for 9 months. Now, the expanding, the burgeoning of fetology has created and is creating a very serious problem in hospitals. There is a paradox, an antinomy, if you like, in that on one floor of a hospital, we are now diagnosing the illness of the fetus. We are using all these technologies to treat it with medication. We are even performing surgery on it now. And on the next floor down, that very same fetus is being casually destroyed for no reason whatever. Now that is creating, as I say, an intolerable moral tension in hospitals. And as the public begins to realize more and more through the media that fetology is an expanding and an exciting science and is giving us a new perception of the fetus, it is creating an increasing tension in a lot of sectors in the public as well. You know, it's curious that in no other branch of medicine than I know of do we bring to bear expensive and increasingly sophisticated technology for diagnosis of the patient's illness or disorder, only thereupon to eradicate it. Not the illness, but the patient. So, as I say, we cannot continue to allow this kind of moral tension to accumulate. It is ripping apart various segments of medicine now. In fact, in San Francisco, there has been a concerted effort on the part of a number of nurses who have organized who will no longer serve in any abortion units in the hospitals. And this is the direction of the future. We can only anticipate that fetology will continue to expand, and these questions which I have brought up to you, these issues, are going to become more and more insistent.
But Dr. Nathanson, remember when you were amazed when your clinic opened, this army, this rag-tailed army of female humanity that descended upon you with rucksacks, standing there, waiting, sitting for days. What's to happen to them?
Well, to begin with, you must understand that that was the only functioning clinic in the eastern half of the United States at that time. So we were gathering all sorts of women to our clinic who couldn't get an abortion elsewhere. Now, the truth is that in 1970, when our clinic opened, fetology had not even developed as a science. We had none of this sophisticated technology. In other words, what I'm telling you is there was no countervailing moral or ethical force in opposition to free or legal or casual abortion in those days, as has developed now. And now we are in a very different quandary. Those of us who practice medicine, who practice obstetrics, now Dr. Morgentaler does not practice obstetrics, he is not a fetologist, he does not understand these things. But on the other hand, you see those of us who do are caught in this psychological and moral whipsaw, where on the one hand we are treating the patient and on the other hand we are casually destroying it.
Right there. Dr. Morgentaler has been busy writing notes. I'm sure he wants to say something about that, and he'll get that opportunity when we get back. Dr. Morgentaler, you listened with great care to what Dr. Nathanson had to say. I'm sure you have something to...
I have a lot of things to say. Dr. Nathanson told me already about two things I did not know. I want to bring it down from the high clouds of some kinds of things up there in the air to real human problems. And Dr. Nathanson knows, like everybody else, that unwanted pregnancies do occur. Often they occur as a result of failure of contraception or because contraceptives were not taken. They do occur sometimes as a result of incest and as a result of rape. And I just want to tell you from my experience what happened 3 days ago, namely a Ontario girl, 15 years old, who had been raped,
that's been given a great deal of publicity in the newspapers,
was denied an abortion, and I told the doctor who called me about it, send it to my clinic, I'll do it for nothing. She came to my clinic. I did the abortion on her at 15 weeks by the method called D&E, which is a modification of the vacuum suction abortion. Now, I want to know from you, do you think that this girl had the right to an abortion? And do you think that any woman who gets pregnant and does not want to continue that pregnancy, do you believe now that their abortion should be completely illegal? Or do you see that there are any reasons that some women might still, in your opinion, obtain an abortion by a doctor rather than a quack or as a result of a coat hanger or whatever else?
Yeah, these are legitimate questions. Let me respond to them.
Right.
To begin with, I think that there's only one reason or one reasonable justification for abortion, and that is where the mother's physical life is in imminent jeopardy. I think there a woman is entitled to defend her life. But short of that, I do not think there are any other reasons for abortion. Let me turn to the question of rape. You see, the problem here is we have a child, a fetus, or a person created under circumstances which are tragic, no question. But those circumstances should not stigmatize the life of that child. I put it to you that not every one of us were conceived in the most ideal circumstances, and in fact, many of us, unknowingly or not, may in fact have been conceived in an act of rape. Yet, that should never stigmatize our lives. We were innocent. Why should we be destroyed?
Let
me finish. Now, third thing. Let me finish, please. Wait a minute. Let me finish, please. Just a minute. The third problem is that unwanted pregnancy, there is no question, is a compelling, difficult social issue. But it demands social solutions. It is as inappropriate to cope with this particular social problem with a destructive surgical means as it would be to treat violent criminals with lobotomy or rapists with surgical castration. Those are social problems as well. We do not treat them with violent surgical means. Should we still return to the 19th century practice of treating chronic masturbators with vasectomy, as was done?
Do you propose
now, wait a minute, let me finish, please. Now, wait a minute, let me finish, please. Vexing social problems call for imaginative and humane social responses, not surgical holocausts.
What about the kitchen table you were going to say?
Yeah. I've read your book, Dr. Nathanson,
yes.
And the first part of the book is very interesting, and the whole book is quite interesting.
Yes.
But it's completely inconsistent, because in the first part of the book you describe the suffering of New York women, poor women, Negro women, Puerto Rican women, with a great deal of feeling and compassion. These women coming to hospital after botched abortions, after coat hanger abortions, and you describe all this, and you say, oh, I had to do something. We had to provide for decent medical abortions where these women could protect their life, their dignity, and so on. Suddenly, in the last part of the book, you say no abortion should ever be had by anyone.
And I don't except where the mother's life is
physically endangered.
Yeah, but this is maybe 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 cases. Now, very rare. You admit it's rare. So what happens to all these other poor women who do not have access to abortion? And in Canada, unlike the United States, the situation is still such that in many provinces, women do not have access to medical abortion. So what do you propose about these women who may be women from poor rural areas, adolescents, women in Newfoundland, women in Alberta, women in Manitoba, who have to go to the United States or still have to...
Yes, I heard you the first time when you were doing this. Yes.
All right. Well, what do you propose to do about it?
The issue now is,
how
first
come
of
you have
all,
no compassion for these women? How come?
These words were written as of experience in 1963 and 65. Contraception today is much more common. Contraceptive education is much more widespread. The contraceptive means are better than they were in 1963. We do not anticipate, in fact, that there would be the same problems. Secondly, the words which I wrote in those years were written with no countervailing force morally. We knew nothing of the fetus in those days. Let me remind you that when you and I went to medical school, the books we used, Williams, for example, which I used in obstetrics, had 27 pages on the fetus in 1949. But this last edition, 1980, the 16th edition, has 276 pages on the fetus, 1/3 of the book. So there is a strong countervailing force to the abortion ethic, which only those of us, incidentally, who are in practice or who are doing obstetrics or fetology understand. But finally, the problem of the illegal abortion, the old back alley abortion, is gone. It is finished. You and I both know that even if abortion were outlawed tomorrow morning in the United States and Canada, there would no longer be any back alley abortions.
That's
What
not
women
true.
would do,
That
what
is
women would do is
absolutely
what they would go
untrue.
to the drugstore and they would buy prostaglandin suppositories under the counter, take them home, put them in the vagina, in the bathroom, and have a quick bathroom abortion. There would no longer be any coat hangers. The coat hanger is a symbol of the 1960s. It was very useful, Dr. Morgentaler. When I was in the political arena, we loved it, the bloodied coat hanger. It is no longer so. It will never be that again.
We seem to be at cross purposes here, doctors. You're campaigning, standing up for the fetus, the right to life to that fetus, and Dr. Morgentaler is talking about the mother.
No, I think
No, I'm talking about
both.
the freedom for people to make reasonable choices regarding their lives, their fertility, the spacing of children, and what should happen if a woman accidentally gets pregnant as a result of sexual activity where the goal was not procreation. Now, Dr. Nathanson says now I think he lives in fantasy land. On the one hand, he says in his book that abortion should be limited to hospitals only. On the other hand, he said if abortions were made illegal completely tomorrow, every woman could go to the drugstore and get prostaglandins and have an abortion by herself. It does not yet exist, Dr. Nathanson. You know it as well as me.
You don't know the Upjohn Company, Dr.
Well,
Morgentaler.
they have not put it yet. It's not available.
There.
It's
my
not
dear,
available.
it is there. It is very much there. They're
And
using
you know
it in
as
the
well as
hospitals
I,
all the time.
the work of Christopher Tietze, who is the eminent biostatistician from the
Well, he's the eminent pro-abortion statistician.
but
from
also
New York.
the eminent,
Yes. I know Dr.
respected
Tietze very well.
biostatistician.
Well, respected by those who are pro-abortion. Yes.
All right. Well, you
let's-
respected him before. Now, since you turned,
Let's take
you don't
Dr.
respect
Tietze
him
in his
anymore.
proper
Okay.
context.
Who has proven beyond a shadow of doubt, and the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta has proven
another
beyond a
wonderful
shadow of doubt
pro-abortion place. Yes. Yes,
that,
sorry.
that
Yeah.
every week of delay in obtaining abortion increases the danger of major complications by 20%,
Where did you
and
get-
the danger of mortality by 30%.
Oh.
I can cite you figures. They are in my
Please
book.
do.
The Center for Disease Control is a respected institution across the United States. They collect statistical data
Yes.
not only on abortion, but on all diseases. And suddenly, since they have a stand which you don't agree with, you call them
All
pro-abortion.
right, we'll take a break, and you come back. You're
good.
tut-tutting busily, and Dr. Nathanson will have his say, and it'll go on. We're back.
Let me make one correction, please, if I may, in what you said. I think you said that I have the interests of the fetus at heart.
Well, you seem to be
Dr.
arguing
Morgentaler.
that way.
No, I think, to put it in its proper frame of reference, I am an obstetrician, trained in a residency. I'm a professor at a medical school, and so on. My interests are both. I have the interests of the mother at heart. I have the interests of the fetus at heart. They are necessarily co-equal interests. I do not value one over another. Human life, to me, is all important and supreme. But, and therefore, I think that understanding should underlie all of our discussion here. Dr. Morgentaler brought up some questions about figures in his book, particularly. I've looked at his book. It's a book which, regrettably, Dr. Morgentaler, has a number of inaccuracies, a number of misleading statements. And they begin, by the way, in the preface when you say you were probably the first doctor in North America to use vacuum suction. In fact, you were not. Kerslake and Casey reported on 107, I believe, uterine evacuation suctions in obstetrics and gynecology.
In England.
Some of these were done here.
Well, you said
and
you
I
bought
was,
your machine in
incidentally, I was
69
doing
and
abortions in 1965. Where were you
Not
then?
with
I
a
was
vacuum
doing
suction
saline
technique.
abortions in
Not with-
1965.
You said you bought your vacuum
Now we have
suction
other.
machine in
May I
69
finish,
and I
please?
bought
May
it
I
in
finish,
68.
please?
All right.
May I finish, please? Now we have other figures which are of interest. Dr. Morgentaler quotes, for example, the Life magazine poll, which he quotes. He quoted incorrectly and inaccurately and incompletely, I should say. The Life magazine poll I happen to have here. There are interesting figures about the refused abortion and the Swedish study. Dr. Morgentaler regrettably did not quote the entire study. I have the entire study here. And in fact, the end of the study with regard to people who were refused abortion says the following, and you can read it if you like. 73% of the women who were refused abortion in Sweden expressed satisfaction at the way things had turned out, and 27% would have preferred to have had a legal abortion. The frequency of satisfaction was higher among the women who gave birth to the child than among those who aborted. Right here. This is your paper that you quote in your book, Refused Abortion by Hook.
Well,
so I think that when we're talking figures and when we're talking statistics, I think we probably should document them a little more carefully and produce the material.
Dr. Morgentaler.
Well, I'm not going to re-quote some of the things that you said that I said. When you write a book, you cannot include all the material that's available. You have to make selection. And I stand by all the statements in my book exactly as it was written. Let's bring it down to real human problems that affect people, yes, not somewhere in the clouds where you want to stay and remain.
Let's bring it up.
Suppose for this girl that was 15 years old that was raped, would you grant her an abortion if you were able to do so?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think, as I said, a rape is a sufficient reason to destroy a human life.
Okay. Now, another question. Do you believe that life starts at conception, as the Roman Catholic Church believes, or later, as you say in your books, about 3 weeks later?
Yeah, let me just go back to the rape issue. I think there are things we really haven't finished on.
All right.
The problem with this particular case, Susan, whatever her name was, and the rape situation, was...
Angèle? All right, but she's called Susan.
What was the motivation for the abortion? In other words, let us assume that if we could terminate this pregnancy by a technology in which the fetus would be saved, would not be injured, but could be transformed or put into another uterus, or into a life support system, transplanted, would that girl, would the parents consent to such an abortion? In other words, is the purpose of that abortion to terminate the external signs of a pregnancy, or is it in fact to kill that hated child?
Well, there's no child there yet. I don't understand how you talk about the child. Well, you know yourself, you're an expert on fetology. You know that up to 8 weeks, you don't even see the embryo. It is there, but you don't even see it with the naked eye.
Oh, on ultrasound, we can see it very easily.
All right, ultrasound can see very precisely things that are 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters apart.
Yeah, but they're there. But they're there.
Yeah, but okay. Suppose people...
They're there, you see. Ultrasound has changed so much.
All right, suppose an ordinary Canadian or American couple has sex, and they don't want to have sex in order to procreate, but as an expression of love, affection, need, and so on. Suppose the woman gets pregnant, and it's true, you know as well as I that contraception is not perfect.
True.
Many people can not take the pill. There's failures with the IUD, there's failures with the cervical cap, and so on. And a woman gets pregnant. She does not want this pregnancy to continue. Does she have a right, according to you, to terminate that pregnancy before these few cells become a blastocyst, an embryo, a fetus, and you call it even alpha. You use a different term altogether.
Well, the term was used in order to neutralize the discussion, so we wouldn't get involved in a lot of
does she have a right to terminate the development of this alpha, or the blastocyst, or the embryo, because this woman and that couple feel that they haven't got the conditions to provide adequate care and what a child needs, which is affection, mothering, a good home. Do they have this right, or do you want to deny them this right? And do you want to subject them to, again, to coat hangers or to unprofessional people with a greater risk of injury or death and indignities and exploitation, whatever else was available before abortion became legal in the United States and partially legal in Canada?
I think it's a good question. I think everything should be discussed on an unemotional and intellectual level here. I think we should confine ourselves not to a lot of
well, just answer a simple question without going into the clouds again and telling me it's a good question or not. You're not a professor here and not your pupil.
Let us look at the question of your book and the brain waves. You indicate that brain waves start at on page 26, you said the 5th month, and then you go on again somewhere.
Well, you're evading the question.
You said the 6th month. Well, I'm trying
to establish. What about a 6-week-old fetus? Does a woman have a right to terminate a pregnancy where it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks?
A woman has no right to destroy a human life without the most compelling reason. And a compelling reason is not that it is inconvenient life.
Okay.
Being an unwanted child should not be a capital offense, Dr.
Let me just follow your reasoning, Dr. Nathanson.
Yes.
and say, you believe then that any pregnancy that occurs under no matter what circumstances, be it rape, incest, the girl being 12 or 13 years old, the girl already being a grandmother, a couple having already 2, 3 children, the husband being unemployed, the woman having to work, under no matter what circumstances the pregnancy occurs, you believe that that pregnancy has to continue and that the couple have no right to make a decision to terminate that pregnancy. Is that your position?
The couple have no right to arbitrarily destroy the life of another human being, regardless of how inconvenient that life may be.
Another human being.
Regardless of how inconvenient that life may be.
3 weeks? What about menstrual extraction at 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Whether you call it menstrual extraction, whether you call it abortion, saline, whatever, it is the destruction of an identifiable human life. And that kind of destruction must not continue.
Dr. Nathanson.
These children, these fetuses are not anyone's property, any more than slaveholders could argue, look, you people in the North, you may not like the way we treat our slaves or we have slavery, but it's our choice. It's our freedom of choice. Don't try to impose your beliefs on what we think is necessary in the South. And if that situation had prevailed, if freedom of choice had remained, we would still have slavery in the United States, wouldn't we?
Well, this is what you bring in comparisons which are completely inadequate.
Very appropriate.
Not at all, not at all, because the question of slavery is a question dealing with human beings, whereas a woman who gets pregnant, who wants an abortion, she does not want these few cells to develop into a human being.
You continue to keep talking of but you see, you are not a fetologist. You're not an obstetrician. You don't understand. You haven't seen the ultrasounds. You do not deal with these questions. You are not a physician, Dr. Morgentaler. You are an abortionist.
You're talking down to me from a high chair as if you're some kind of specialist, whereas I meet daily people who come to me for help or distress.
I was there 15, 10 years ago. More experience with it than you do.
How come you have no more compassion in your heart for real people?
I do.
Real
These
women.
are social problems. We must deal with them with
they affect
social
individual
solutions.
people,
more
individual
education,
women.
More authority, more compassion in the early years. Let's take these women as they are children and educate them to their responsibilities. But let's not destroy any more human life. 12 million lives have gone down the drain. That's enough, Dr. Morgentaler. Let's call a moratorium. Let's work out a technology whereby we can take that pregnancy out of the uterus, put it into a life support system or someone else's uterus, and then everybody's right, everybody's wishes will be respected. The woman will no longer have the pregnancy. The fetus will not be destroyed. But in the meantime, until we get that technology in the next few years, within 4 or 5 years, it's already there in veterinary medicine.
All right, what do we do in the next 4 or 5 years?
Let's stop. Let's call a moratorium. Let's not talk about laws and this and that. Let's just say, wait. Let's wait till the technology is here before we destroy any more human beings.
Dr. Morgentaler?
Well, you think then, I think you live in a dream world. You live in a fantasy where you cite technology. I'm citing the cases of real people who come to me, to my clinic, saying to me, doctor, I'm pregnant, I cannot continue with this pregnancy, it's a catastrophe for me, I'm too young, I'm divorced, I'm separated, I'm too old, I have already the children I want, and we just had intercourse with my husband, the IUD failed, or the pill, I couldn't take the pill. What do you do with these people? What are you going to do? Are you going to send them to the back alley abortionists?
There are no more back alley abortionists.
Because abortion has become legal in the United States.
There are not.
But it's half legal in Canada.
Let us take the figures quoted by your wonderful friends, Grimes and Cates, at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, and I have this paper here. What happened when the Medicaid funding for abortion was cut off in 46 states, and Grimes and Cates and Tyler and those people made apocalyptic predictions that the illegal abortion rate was going to go up enormously? In point of fact, it didn't go up at all. There were no more illegal abortion deaths.
We're not talking about funding.
There were no more illegal abortions. Women somehow found the means or did not get the abortions.
Okay, we're not talking about funding now. They could go to another state. They could get a few $100s to get it. We're talking about the fact that you want to push us back to the Middle Ages or to the era before abortion was legal in the United States and it's half legal in Canada, and you do not care. You have no compassion in your heart for the millions of women. Millions of women who need the abortions. Where should they go? Where should these women go?
All right.
Where to?
We'll leave that question dangling, and we'll come back and we'll get an answer from Dr. Nathanson. So hot and heavy that we've forgotten the question that Dr. Nathanson was supposed to answer.
Well, I'll ask
but the
you.
big thing is...
Yeah, the ask question.
no, the
yeah,
question-
I'll ask it again. What should the women...
I think he asked
women
me,
do
why
who are
should
pregnant,
we go back to
who
the Middle Ages?
Who did not...
No compassion.
What should women do who don't want to be pregnant and want an abortion? Where should they go?
In the Middle Ages, and until recently, the respect for life was virtually nil. Life was cheap. Any kind of life. I think as we proceed through this troubled 20th century and on into the 21st, I think we should continue the trend which has been established, namely more and more respect for human life. No capital punishment, nothing of that sort. Get rid of wars. Don't destroy any kind of life. Anything within the penumbra of human life should be respected to the ultimate degree and not destroyed. That's not the Middle Ages, Doctor. That is the next millennium, if you wish.
Well, I agree with you that respect for life is an important thing, and I have tremendous respect for life. I'm a graduate, Dr. Nathanson, of Auschwitz and Dachau. I know what it means to have a totalitarian system which exterminates people. I know that, and it's because I want Auschwitz never to happen again, that I help women to get abortions so that children which will be born into homes where they are wanted, desired, given care, affection, and love, so that they will become loving, responsible individuals and not Hitlers or Stalins or Mussolinis or other scourges of society. And when you say that any pregnancy, no matter under what condition, has to go to term, that a girl who's 12 years old has been raped, she's got to go on with her pregnancy, that a woman who's 50 years old is already a grandmother, has to go on with her pregnancy, that a girl who's got pregnant as a result of incest has to go on with her pregnancy. I think this is not respect for life. It's an anti-human attitude. It's a destructive attitude, which does not take into account the realities of life, the fact that people nowadays have to limit their capacity for reproduction, limited to the point where they have the number of children to whom they can give care and love and affection and a home. And if an unwanted pregnancy does occur, and you know as well as I, and everybody out there knows that it does occur occasionally and quite often, what I am saying only is that the woman should have a right to make her choice, the freedom of choice to choose abortion or a continued pregnancy. And if she has chosen abortion, I want her to have it by a medical doctor under good conditions where her life and her health and her dignity will be protected. Now, you know on the other side where you say, oh, nothing's going to happen, even if these women want an abortion, even if they say they need an abortion, we can't provide it. They can go to the drugstore and get prostaglandins. Come now, it's not yet available. Or they should use coat hangers again, or should go the back alley route. This is what you want to do. You want to make abortions illegal, not only in the United States, and in Canada, all over the world. Isn't that what you want to do?
Dr. Morgentaler, you're back there in 1968.
Just answer my question. What should women do who need abortions? You evade the question all the time.
And Larry later sat down when we organized NARAL. And where were you, by the way, when we were doing this?
I'm a member of NARAL and the founder of CARAL, the Canadian equivalent.
To construct these slogans and these passwords, which
they're
we
not
knew
slogans, they're
would be,
realities.
please let me finish, which we knew would be the most effective political rallying cries for the feminists particularly, but for America in general. They were very effective in 1968.
Were they realistic? Were they honest?
They are meaningless because the term, for example, the slogan freedom of choice only applies where the alternatives in the choice are ethically acceptable. You cannot, for example, say that I should have freedom of choice here now because I don't like what Dr. Morgentaler is saying. My choices are either to get up and walk away or to punch him in the nose. Well, of course, that's not freedom of choice. The second alternative,
You're
violence,
evading the question.
the second alternative, violence, is not an ethically acceptable alternative.
Dr. Nathanson,
and therefore, that is not a true choice.
Yeah,
that is not a true choice.
I want to ask you
Similarly, in this particular issue, the alternative of either carrying the pregnancy or destroying it is not an ethically acceptable choice.
For you. For
the
you.
removal of the pregnancy without destroying it, that is different. That would be a totally
All right.
acceptable.
Morgentaler is champing at the bit here. He wants you to come back to this question. What do we do with these women?
All right, yeah.
Who are
Suppose
marching
these women who believe that they have a right to terminate a pregnancy, do you respect their choice? This is freedom of choice. You seem
That
to
kind of choice I do not respect.
Exactly, that's what
That
I mean.
kind
So
of
which
choice,
means that
the choice which involves the destruction of an innocent, unprotected human being is
not
not
yet an
an
innocent-
ethically acceptable choice at all.
All right. When does it become an innocent human being, according to you?
When it exists.
When?
At the time
When is that?
There's
When
no
is that?
bar mitzvah in the uterus.
When
At
is
some
that?
point, this does
in
not become a man.
In your book, you say you disagree with the position of the Roman Catholic Church, which that says that life begins at conception.
Yes.
And Dr. Nathanson, from the wisdom of his high chair as a fetologist, has decided, the new pope, that life begins at 3 weeks after conception, when the small conceptus gets into the lining of the uterus, and there's some hormones around there. At 3 weeks.
No, I didn't say that. At 9 days, I said.
At 9 days. Even better. At 9 days, which means a woman should have a right then to have an abortion up to 9 days?
No, I said that
Up to 9 days, is it
theoretically life begins at conception, but in practical fact, as a practicing obstetrician, it has to begin when the implantation occurs, because up to that time we don't even know it's there. There are no signals from it. So on a practical basis, life begins at implantation, but theoretically, of course, it begins entirely at conception. Let me answer one question. Wanted children, that's a curious phrase, and another one, by the way, we concocted in the late 60s as a very effective password. But in point of fact, there are unwanted pregnancies. There are no unwanted children. I mean, everyone wants a child. There are people out there, 1.5 million couples in the United States who want a child who can't have them. So there are really no unwanted children. But let me get more to your point that every child should be wanted.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, now we have this millennium. Every child is theoretically an abortion survivor in the United States, and every child is a wanted child. So answer me this, please. Why is it that the figures for child abuse have skyrocketed within the last 5 years when every child is wanted? I do not understand that social phenomenon.
Well, we live
in your abortion millennium.
We live in a violent society.
We live in
a violent society.
We sure do when people are setting up abortion.
All right,
That's not why it is.
That's violence.
There's an ethos of violence because we live in a society where for generations children have been abused. Where lots of unwanted children have suffered frustration, abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and these children become the adults who abuse their own children. If we have a few generations when abortion is available and family planning is available, a few generations of children
more abortion will cure everything.
It'll cure a lot of things.
Everything.
Where children are wanted, desired, given love and affection and care in a home with 2 parents preferably. These children will not grow up to be haters and killers and rapists and maimers. These children will grow up to be able to be loving individuals, able to get into relationships, able to be productive, able to enjoy life.
Now who's living in cloud land?
Exactly. No, that's not cloud nine. All other things being equal, and it's happening already. It's happening already.
From cloud nine, doctors, we've got to come back. 645-3211. If you're dialing from out of town, 645-3211, you want to get in on the debate, and we'll be down to the phones when we get back.
Dr. Sasha,
What says we're back? What? You're really getting mad. What Dr. Nathanson is what?
Well, I'll read it to you on TV.
We're back. We're back. We're live.
We're live.
Read it.
Live. Oh, good.
Well, I have here a document signed by Campaign Life where it says how to put a damper on the abortion business. Dr. Bernard Nathanson, former abortionist, has suggested that pro-life groups publish the names of pro-abortion doctors in their local newsletters. Such action is highly recommended as it brings significant social pressure to bear on abortionists and serves as a positive encouragement for them to mend their ways.
Absolutely.
And doctors in Canada have been harassed, and there's been a doctor in Moncton, New Brunswick, who stopped doing abortions for 6 months because of that. Because of that, let me finish. Women from Moncton, New Brunswick have come to my clinic after journeys of 15 hours on a train, exhausted in the morning for a 5-minute procedure they should have had in their own communities. And the other advice here.
Now,
How do you do that? Obtaining proof.
Let me respond to that.
I'm not finished with it yet. Here.
Let him read this. Let him read this.
Well, I think
so what should...
then you don't
All right.
forget.
At the advice of Dr. Nathanson, the Right to Life people say, how should they put pressure on doctors performing abortions? They should obtain proof. which means they should steal operating room sheets.
Is that what it says there?
That's
Stealing?
what it says.
Let me
No,
see
they
the
don't,
stealing.
they don't say stealing. They say obtain them. Obtain them. Make sure you
They
have
can be
proof.
obtained by pro-life nurses who work in operating rooms,
So
can't
you're
they?
behind all this?
Besides
and you're
which,
allied
that
with
is all
fanatics
public.
like that?
Now, my dear
Yeah.
Dr. Morgan,
All right, hang on.
first of
Would
all,
you ask Dr.
An official
I do not
document,
think
Campaign Life.
that
Here.
obstetricians who are pledged to carry on in the interests of both the mother and the fetus, such as myself, can at the same one and the same time, as I indicated to you very early in this program, be treating the fetus, for example, fetal cardiac condition resolved by transplacental digitalis, giving digitalis to a fetus, which is sick in utero.
On one floor.
On one floor, and go down one flight and simultaneously virtually destroy the fetus on the next floor. I think that there is an absolutely unacceptable moral antinomy or paradox there in which those doctors can simply not be trusted to be acting within the usual and customary confines of medical ethics.
Dr. Nathanson,
And this
what
is
about
why I have said that such doctors who are doing abortions should not be patronized, should not have people who disagree with their ethic as their patients. They simply should not. Now, as far as stealing operating room sheets, I never said anything of the sort. I merely said that when operating room information or patients or numbers of abortions become available on the basis of those doctors who've done them, then I think these information should be publicized. Because I do not think, as I say, that doctors who are doing abortions are trustworthy in an obstetrical sense.
Now, you have both during the breaks accused one another of fanaticism. You wrote, Dr. Nathanson, and I quote, "You plead for an honest, clear-eyed consideration of the abortion issue, an end to blind polarity. The issue is human life."
Yes, that was in 1974 in an editorial in the New England Journal of Medicine.
You both call one another fanatics. Where's the clue?
Well,
nothing fanatical.
let's compare our positions. I'll state my position very clearly and concisely. My position is that every woman has a right to decide whether pregnancy should go on to term or not. And if she decides that the pregnancy comes at a time when it's inappropriate, where she cannot provide mothering and care for a child to come, I believe she has a right, together with a consort or mate or husband, to say to a doctor, I wish this pregnancy to be terminated, and she should have a right to have it under decent medical and psychological human conditions. Now, this respects the opinions of those people who are opposed to abortion. It means that those people who, for religious or other reasons like you, believe that abortion is not right for them, will not have to have abortions, and it respects the right of people who believe that abortion is a right and responsible decision for them at this time to go to a doctor and have it under good conditions.
All right, hold it right there. Very quickly, Dr.
How
Nathanson.
can this be
First,
fanatical?
I think it should be pointed out that I am not acting out of religious convictions, since I do not have any religious convictions, and I think
you
that should be
allied with
straightened right
people who
here.
have
Now, the
religious
second thing
convictions.
is that, let me finish, please. The rights of women must be respected. The rights of everyone must be respected, provided they do not trample the rights of anybody else. And in this case, these patients who are being treated with transplacental digitalis, these patients in the uterus who are being operated upon, their rights must not be trampled and trashed.
All right, let's hold it right there. We'll try. We said we were going to get back to the phones, and we couldn't because of this thing that was brought up, but we will when we get back. We're desperately short of time because it is an issue that is so wide, and we have two very learned people discussing this sort of thing, although they may not think the other fellow's learned. Just ask your question. Don't get into an argument with them. Drop your question in. They'll both respond. Dr. Nathanson and Dr. Morgentaler. Cherington, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Dr. Morgentaler's main point in this discussion seems to be that he wants every child to be a wanted child. What he won't admit, or either doesn't know, is that the most battered children are the result of planned and wanted pregnancies. Children become battered as a result of high expectation on the part of the parents.
Hold it right there, madam. What do you say, Doctor?
That is not true. The fact of the matter is that those people who abuse children have themselves been battered children, they've been brutalized, and unfortunately there's a vicious cycle going on. It goes from generation to generation.
Yes, but
And some people,
Hang on, ma'am, hang on. We
some
don't want
people know that they're not fit to be good mothers or fathers, and I think they have a right to
Planned
stop a
and wanted
pregnancy
pregnancy.
before this pregnancy goes on to term, and this way they avoid having children that they will brutalize.
All right, hang on. Anything to comment
No,
on
I think I made that point earlier, first of all, that the child abuse figures have skyrocketed. We are seeing it every day in the newspapers. It's getting worse, by the way, not better. And we have every reason to anticipate that it will continue to worsen in this abortion ethic, this violence ethic, which you alluded to earlier.
Thank you for your call, ma'am. Let's take another quick question. Never mind arguing on the phone. We just don't have time. Cherington, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, like Mr. Morgentaler says, people are getting in a situation where they can't support the child or they're poor. Like, I agree with Dr. Nathanson. He says they can always give up the child for adoption. Like, I'd like to ask Mr. Morgentaler if he has any children. If so, has he ever asked his children what they thought if he decided they weren't planned? Or
Well, it's getting a little personal. All right, sir. Do you want to answer?
It's quite personal. I have 2 grown children, and I have a little boy that's 3 years old. All these children are wanted. They've received a lot of love and affection. They will not become killers. They'll not become rapists. They'll not become maimers. And I wish that all children are born into families where they will be loved, given affection and care. And if that happens, they will become loving, productive, good members of society.
All right. Cherington, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Quickly, ma'am.
I would
your
like to
question.
talk to Dr. Morgentaler,
A
please.
very quick question, yes.
Doctor, God bless you and hope you keep up your good work. There's no doubt in my mind who's the most humane of the 2 doctors on that show. It most certainly is you. You are dealing with people who are living in the world today with pain and emotional trauma. They have a need, and you doing your best to give them a chance to make that choice for themselves. Dr. Nathan speaks of only his own choice, his own opinion.
All right, hang on. Dr. Nathanson, would you like to
Yes,
respond
I
to that you're trying to force your opinions on the world?
No, I think that my opinions or my observations here are based on my perceptions of the fetus and my knowledge of the fetus. Unfortunately, we have seen the fetus. We have communicated with it. We understand it. It is a prisoner which is invisible to the general public, and therefore it is in fact shunted away and its rights have been trashed. But let me just finish, please.
Yeah, okay.
In the near future, and even now, as women more and more during their pregnancies, and this is very important, are being subjected to ultrasound examinations, and as they are seeing that fetus of theirs on the screen and their husbands watching, more and more women are beginning to perceive what I and other fetologists know, that is a human being in there, and gradually, subtly, feelings are changing in the United States with the advent of this particular technology.
Say, through this magic, you see terrible deformities. What then? Problems.
Then I think we have to prepare ourselves for the birth of that child, because that child may not be casually destroyed, you see. That life is not yours or mine or anyone else's to do away with. And interestingly, the rate of suicide among severely handicapped people is virtually 0. If you read Hendon and others on suicide, you'll note that handicapped people virtually never kill themselves. They enjoy their lives. They hang on to their lives. Their lives are very important to them.
May I ask a question, Dr. Nathanson? This is a public record, Dr. Nathanson. You wrote very graphically about the girl you impregnated while you were a medical student.
It's
and
father
That's correct. And where your father helped you to get an abortion for her.
Yes.
Do you now believe that this was a mistake and that you should have married that girl? And do you believe now, consequently, that any college student where college people or younger people have sex, that any time a girl gets pregnant, even though they're not ready yet to become father and mother, that they should go on with that pregnancy, get married, and so on?
I think, in answer to your question, in the state of my ignorance and the girl's ignorance regarding what was really being done, the nature of the act, we were acting out of our ignorant convictions in those days, and I would probably still say that were we back in 1949, I would do the same thing, because we didn't know anything then. We were acting out of ignorance.
But
today, we
now,
do no longer have the excuse of ignorance.
Would you have married that girl now?
Well, let me just finish, please.
If it happened now,
finish,
it's
please.
the same.
We know the essential nature of the act now. The act now is the destruction of an identifiable, visible, sentient human being, and we can no longer accept that.
Okay, would
we
you
can no
have,
longer sanction
then, would you have married that girl then because she got pregnant, even though you didn't want to be married, even though your medical status had not been fit? Would you have married her now with the knowledge that you had?
Probably not. We probably would have gone on to have the child.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly, as many people do. And by the way, there are more single births now in the United States than there have ever been.
Well, I'll make a confession to you. When I was a medical student in Montreal...
You sure you want to do this on television?
Well, it's quite all right.
Okay.
I had one girl already, which was 2 years old, and my wife got pregnant while I was a medical student. I was a poor medical student, and we decided she should have an abortion. And she did have an abortion under very sordid conditions. Fortunately, it was done by a doctor. Now, we regretted that, but it was the right decision. 4 years later, after I graduated, my wife had another child, a boy, and that was fine. And many people make this decision because they are responsible decisions in the context of their life, of their situation.
May I ask you a personal
and they
question?
They go on to have children at a time when it's appropriate, when they can provide good care, good mothering, and everything that a child needs.
Question. You said in relating this event that you regretted that. Why did you regret it?
Well, we regret it because many women do regret the fact that, unfortunately, the context of the situation is such that at this point in time, we cannot provide the mothering and care which a child needs.
Yeah.
And you know that this happens. And very often, abortion does not mean a rejection of motherhood. It just means postponement of motherhood to a time when appropriate care can be given to a child. And I, in my own practice, have had many women who have had an abortion at age 16 or 18, who went on to marry and have 2 or 3 children. Eventually, 10 years later, they've decided they have 2 children, that's enough. I just had a woman recently who came for the second abortion after she had an abortion at age 16. Now she has 2 children, one is 9 and one is 6, and now they say, we have enough children. This is the 2 children we want to give care to. We want to educate them. We cannot afford to have
Morgentaler, are you really saying that there's a lot of sorrow attached to this business?
Of course,
a lot of regret.
absolutely.
That it is not a happy subject.
It's not, no. It is a very difficult decision for a
says.
woman and for a couple. But what I mean to say that I respect the decision of that couple or that woman, that she has to come to that decision herself. I'm not making a decision for the woman whether she should abort or not. But when she has decided that abortion is the right, moral, responsible decision choice for her, I respect that decision, and I provide her with a decent medical, good abortion under perfect conditions, whereas Dr. Nathanson does not respect the decision of a couple or a woman.
See, everything he says is absolutely correct. If there were nothing, just a piece of meat, an appendix in the uterus, but unfortunately there is not. It is an identifiable human being, and that human being unfortunately has no advocate. No one speaks for it in these abortions. Who is the advocate for the fetus here in your clinic? Who will speak for it? Who will say, listen, I don't think I ought to come in here now because my mother's not ready and neither is my father, so why don't you just destroy me? Who speaks for the fetus?
For a man who's supposed to be intelligent, how come you don't make the distinction between sexuality and procreation?
Morgentaler,
every act of sexuality, a person has to become a father and a mother every time they have sex.
I think sex is a very responsible action, and a responsible action requires responsibility, and it requires a sense of dignity and a sense of absolute justification for everything which is done.
But suppose a biological accident occurs, they've taken precautions, the woman gets pregnant in spite of the IUD, in spite of the pill, in spite of the condom, in spite of... What should that couple do? What should that woman do? Should she be obliged, according to you, to continue that pregnancy, even if she's minor, even if she's sick, even if she doesn't want this pregnancy to continue? Why do you want to impose your views on her?
This is why I say that this issue, Mr. Cherington, is uncompromisable. And I think if he and I were locked in a room for 6 months with the food being shoved under the door and the key thrown away, we would still not reach a compromise. It's resolvable, but not compromisable. It is resolvable with the technology I described earlier, which will in fact solve the abortion issue.
No, I think it's very easily resolvable in the fact that let's agree to disagree. let's agree to disagree. Fine. You say women should not have abortion. So those women who...
No. I say nobody should have their lives destroyed for anything less than the most compelling reason,
which basically comes down to the fact that women should not have a right to have abortion,
I said
except
life,
in the most unusual circumstances.
I said human life must be protected.
All right,
That's what I said.
Okay. Whereas I say women should have the freedom of choice, not just women, but couples, because the men involved too. Women and couples should have the right to choose when to have children, how many children they should have, and if an accidental pregnancy occurs, they should have a right to make a decision to opt for an abortion. And when this decision has been made, they should have access to a good medical doctor, a good facility, so their life, their health, and their dignity might be protected.
Let's hold it right there. We'll be back. Dr. Morgentaler, you faced some opposition from the Ontario Attorney General's Department about your proposed plans to open a home in Toronto. Are those plans still fixed?
Yes,
are you opening in Ontario?
Yes, there's the clinic in Toronto will open in a few weeks, and another clinic will open in Winnipeg in a few weeks, and we're projecting a clinic for Calgary and St. John's, Newfoundland. There will be freestanding abortion clinics across the country where women will be able to obtain safe, legal...
Is this the commercial?
No.
Safe,
oh, I'm sorry.
No, we're just asking.
Oh, I thought this was
where they'll be able to
because
obtain medical abortions without delay and without the necessity of going to the United States or traveling 1,000 miles and spending $1,000 just on airline tickets.
You don't think that the abortion laws as perpetrated here in Ontario are sufficient?
No, I'd like to have the same laws that they have in the country of Dr. Nathanson, where a woman can go to a doctor and say, it's my responsible decision to have an abortion. Please, doctor, help me. And if that doctor agrees and is able to do it, he will do it.
Will you fight McMurtry? He says no, nothing doing. Morgentaler won't come here.
I have faith in the common sense of the people as represented by juries. And the common sense of people of Ontario know that it's ridiculous for Ontario women to go to Buffalo, to Montreal, to get a medical service to which they are entitled in their hometown. And it's not only ridiculous, it's scandalous and outrageous that their health is being endangered by the fact that delays caused by the present system endanger the life and health of these women.
Gentlemen, let's throw in money, the economics. A question from the floor, Kate.
It's a good question.
It's big business.
Good question. The economics of abortion in the United States is that it is a $500 million a year business. Now, this, I put it to you, is a very considerable figure. 90% of that money goes into the pockets of the doctors who are doing the abortions, 10% into entrepreneurs. I am often asked, well, why, if the doctors know all the facts about fetology that you know, why don't they change the abortion laws? And the answer, of course, is that the economics are so compelling and so powerful that, as I often said, it is very seldom that we see anyone try to assassinate Santa Claus.
But there must be a tremendous lot of customers waiting if it's that big a business, Dr. Nathan.
Well, it's a big business, and the answer is that the customers who have the abortions are so satisfied with their abortions, they just keep coming back, Mr. Cherington.
That's the problem.
And
Using it as birth control?
Yes. Unlimited access to abortion creates more abortion. For example, in 1973, the first year that abortion was legal in the United States, 750,000 abortions. 1980, 1.55 million. Now, this is 7 years later, with all the newer technologies and birth control pills and all the rest of it, more sex education, more money thrown into sex education, and still we have a doubling of the abortions. Why?
Well, I want to take it from the point of view of the woman who needs an abortion.
No, you didn't answer my question.
I'll let you finish.
Why have the figures doubled?
You let me finish
but
now,
I posed
okay?
a question to you.
I
posed a question.
Okay. We're running short of time. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. I want to take it from the point of view of the patient, the woman who needs an abortion. At the times when it was illegal in the United States, abortions cost $1,000, $1,500, because it became legal and available and done in freestanding clinics in the United States. Yeah. The cost of the abortion has come down to $200 to $250, which means that a woman who needs an abortion and doesn't have to travel 1,000 miles like in Canada, they still have to do, can go in any state in the United States to a local freestanding abortion clinic, and for her, she doesn't have to spend more than $200 or $250. Whereas in Canada, If a woman comes to me from St. John's, Newfoundland, with her mother or her father, just on traveling expenses
Well, I think we've been all through this
it costs them
commercial, and I think we should move on to
All
something
right,
else.
let's take some calls. Cherington, hello. Hello?
I would like to make a comment there that Dr.
Morgentaler.
Morgentaler should go to London, England,
Got both of us.
and he should see how commercial this abortion clinic thing has become. Taxi drivers touting pregnant women in London airport because they're getting a big bonus for taking them to certain clinics.
Yeah.
And also the other doctor, Nathanson, I think he should be hanging his head in shame somewhere, having committed 75,000 of these murders. Which
Not personally, he administered.
No.
All right, sir. Gentlemen, do you want to comment or do you want to move on?
No.
Well, I think, yes, I think the economics, should be pointed out, are so tempting here. The pot is so big that, as this gentleman rightly points out, the temptation to excesses and the temptation to cheating and lying and stealing and deceit in the financial area in abortion, they are enormous. We encountered it when I was running my clinic. We encountered it in various other clinics in New York. It was dreadful. Other clinics were stealing our patients at the airports. There were payments under the counter all the time between clinics. The whole thing is a terrible industry. It's riddled with deceit, corruption, and as one would expect, because it is reared in violence, and the pot is very large.
And the only way to get around this is to make it perfectly legal, like it is in the United States,
make it free.
and have medical standards enforced. Because when it is illegal, that's when the problems come in.
I think if we must have it,
why don't you let me talk?
If we must have it, let's have it free. You are busily beatifying yourself.
Exactly. Let's have it free. We have
why
it
don't
free.
you do your abortions for nothing?
Oh well,
please. Why not?
I'm willing to do it.
If you are such a martyr, if you are so probably going to be secularly beatified or canonized for all this work, why aren't these abortions free?
What a low below the belt argument coming from you.
Well,
you who made so much money being a director of an abortion clinic.
Activity.
Yes, as you know yourself, that to run an abortion clinic properly, to have proper machinery and proper staff costs a lot of money. Right?
Money, correct.
And I believe that women should have access to legal abortions for free under Medicare. We have a Medicare system in Canada, which you don't have.
That's not free, doctor. That's taxpayers' money.
It's taxpayers'
That's your money, my money, and his
exactly. Someone has to pay for it.
It's not free.
Exactly. And you yourself made the argument here that doctors should not be criticized for making money. The average doctor in the United States who works in an abortion clinic makes maybe $75 for an abortion. In Canada, it varies between $75 and $100. It's not excessive for the stress and the responsibility a doctor assumes. So coming from you, this is below the belt. I'm willing to do them for free. Yes, I'm willing to, and I've done it for free. I've done it for free on that 15-year-old girl who was raped.
Well, that's one.
Who you would refuse an abortion.
All right.
Many,
That's one.
hundreds.
That's one.
Let's take a call.
Let's
see if we can get in one call. Cherington, hello. They've gone. Give me another one, please. Cherington, hello.
Hello?
Yes, quickly, ma'am.
I'd like to just make a comment to Dr. Nathanson.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm a pregnant woman, and I'm looking forward to having my baby, and I've read a lot about the fetus, and I agree it's human. And I think that he should be spending his time and effort on the solution. He talked about implementation into other women, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
All right.
Until that comes, I think we have to provide some other means for rape victims and handicapped children, and truly unwanted children.
What other means? All right, thank you, ma'am.
I mean, do you want to really force a rape
very
victim
much
to go through a
Well,
pregnancy?
I think she directed her comment.
Go ahead, Dr. Nathanson.
I think that, as I've indicated to you, we must march ahead and develop this technology. But until we do, we should declare the moratorium on abortion very much the same way as we have nuclear power. It's available, but we do not know how to handle it yet.
I think
and
you
I
should
believe
declare
that, wait a minute, please, and until we learn how to handle nuclear power, and until we learn how to cope with the dangers of it and the problems with it, we should declare a moratorium on that as well.
Dr. Nathanson.
We are marching ahead with technology faster than we have the ethical judgments to keep pace with it. As George Will said in his column about the Downs baby, he said about Bloomington, Indiana, he said, the baby was born in Bloomington, Indiana, the sort of academic community where medical facilities are more apt to be excellent than moral judgments are.
Well, maybe my comment would be facetious, but I think the only way you can declare a moratorium on abortion is really to declare a moratorium on sex. We should tell people not to have sex for a year, and I'm sure there'll be no abortions at that time.
Well, I mean, I think the facetiousnly is probably out of place here.
Not at all. Because that's the only way to declare the moratorium.
He's arguing this, Dr. Nathanson, because he doesn't
I think
think you're very realistic about waiting for this time.
Dr. Nathanson, as women and men engage in sexual activities, there will be unwanted pregnancies.
No question.
Okay.
No question.
Now, what do you propose? Suppose some of these women want abortion.
I do not propose to assassinate or destroy anyone because
you just adopted the cliches of the right to lifers.
No, those are not cliches.
The tired cliches of the right to lifers.
Those flow from these perceptions.
A blastocyst, you
Fetal
can't see with a naked eye.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Well, what about up to 9 days? Up to 9 days, it's okay.
Ultrasound. Yes,
Pope Nathanson, up to 9 days, is it okay?
Well, St. Henry, I don't know what to tell you.
Boy, oh boy, you're both going to be canonized and beatified, I think it is. Thank you very much, Dr. Henry Morgentaler, for coming down from Montreal, and Dr. Bernard Nathanson coming up from New York to talk about this. We hope you've learned something from this, but these are two pillars in that area. I was going to say the abortion community. What else can I say? Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. There are the two books by the gentlemen who were here, Dr. Henry Morgentaler, Abortion and Contraception, and the other book by Dr. Bernard Nathanson, Aborting America, although his opinions have even hardened since he wrote this bestseller. So you heard it, and Dr. Nathanson said if we locked them in a room and just fed them for 6 months, they might come to some sort of agreement. I don't think so. I think the debate will go on and on and on. In the United States, apparently in Washington, there's going to be a huge march by the anti-abortion people in Washington this weekend. That's what they claim. I don't know what the solution will be, but certainly we appreciate your joining us and all the rest of it. Dr. Henry Morgentaler and Dr. Bernard Nathanson. On Monday, no, first the address. Here's our address, Cherington, Box 30, Station A, Hamilton, Ontario, L8N3A6. On Monday, a much lighter subject, mercifully, fighting. How do you fight? How do you battle with your wife, with your girlfriend, with your children? How do they fight back? What sort of messages do people give when they quarrel? It's a fascinating subject, and Dr. Sam Luca will be here from Guelph University. He has studied this for many, many years, and will tell you how to fight, and when people are fighting, what they're actually telling you. I'm Tom Cherington. Have a nice weekend from me. Good afternoon.